We're going to try something a little bit different here. Something I've wanted to get into for a while, maybe a little bit of a video essay towards a guide, and it starts with a question of, when should you place a reverse bear trap? This is the question I get asked on a near daily basis because we play a lot of Pig. So instead of repeating myself on stream and constantly missing out bits of information that other people might find useful, we're going to turn this into a more full-on, deep dive analysis into when you should be placing reverse bear traps. That might sound like a subjective question, it is, but hopefully we can go into all the different areas that this can include. For example, the different phases of the game, early game, mid game, end game. Is endgame Pig viable? What perks can help you? Are there any synergies? Are there things you should be looking out for? Information and game sense that can greatly impact when you should be placing the reverse bear traps to get the most out of them. For anyone that doesn't know me, my name is CMWinter, the world record pig main. I have 2 world record speedruns for the quickest 4K as Pig. I have over 3,000 hours in Dead by Daylight. 1,100 of those are on Pig, with over 20,000 reverse bear traps placed. The reason why I mention these accolades isn't just to brag and say, oh, I play a lot of video games, bro. It's more about showing you my experience. Experience being the operative word here, of course, because everything in this video is purely based on my own experiences. The games I've played, the perks I've run, the mindset I use when I play those games. It's about the discussions that we've had on stream, and the small amount of content I've consumed from watching other people play Pig. I'm sure there's going to be things that you disagree with in the video, and that is more than okay. If you do disagree with anything that I've said, then be sure to tell me. Leave a comment on the video, join the stream, 10 PM UK time, 5 PM Eastern, twitch.tv/CMWinter. Join the Discord, let's have a discussion about it. Beyond any kind of disagreement, hopefully there'll be something in here that you can learn from. Even better, something that you can take, evolve, and adapt to your own playstyle, because that's the idea here. We're here to discuss things, and we're here to jump from a question that I was asked on stream and see how far we can take it. Of course, the first place that we're going to start is with the first trap. This is easily the simplest thing we're going to go across in this video. 10 points to anyone that can guess when the first trap is applied. Alright, you've had your time. Yes, it's on the first down. You're a genius. I'm a genius. This is the foundation of Pig. She downs someone, she puts a trap on. The first person needs to have the first trap. However, there is a caveat to this. For example, 20 seconds into the game you grab someone somehow, whatever you were doing. It may be quicker to just put them on the hook and move on. Quickly get your barbecue and go find someone else. Another example relating to the idea of grabbing someone would be if you've been searching for 30 or 40 seconds, you finally find someone, you manage to grab them. So Tinkerer pops as you've grabbed them. Now you know that if you drop them, put the trap on, hook them, you're not going to be able to get to that gen in time. However, if you quickly hook them and run to that gen, there's a good chance you may be able to pop it. In this situation I use the idea of Tinkerer. Tinkerer is just a good information perk. It will be coming up a lot through the video, I'm sure, because that's what I run. The idea is, if you know someone's working on a gen as you grab them, then maybe it's more important to get that pop on that gen instead of putting the trap on. We will come to this later on, and if you know you can't get there, the trap is more important. But if the first person you run into happens to be someone that you grab, usually for me, I'm going to hook them straight away. 20 seconds in, 30 seconds in, get a grab, hook, run, go find somewhere to pop. I'm not going to grab them, drop them, put the trap on, hook them. That's an extra 10-15 seconds. The beauty of a grab, the lovely satisfaction of a grab is that you've got them off a gen, off a window, out of a locker, meh, let's just stick to the gen, off a gen, on the hook, boom. 10 seconds, you're done. You don't have to deal with the nitty gritty of the animations, breaking a pallet, kicking a gen. As with most things in this video, the grab is entirely contextual. It's down to your game sense, the perks you're running, and the information that you have, either from patrolling or from said perks. But that is definitely a situation that could potentially warrant you not putting the trap on. So, those are the 2 branching paths of the first trap. You want to get the trap on as quickly as possible, but if you're going to sacrifice speed and some gen pressure, or losing a gen, then maybe the way in which you get that first down could definitely factor into it, and it's something to think about. As we come to the second trap, we're already asking ourselves a few more questions. When did the first trap go on? Has the first trap been activated, so has a gen popped? The big question then is, how many people have you downed? Do you want to do the 3rd person you've downed, or the 4th person you downed, or the 2nd perhaps? So if a gen's popped, that's cause for putting another trap on, of course. However, if there's already a trap on and it's active, you're now in a 1v3 situation. Then you have to think, have you been walking around the map? Have you been looking at the gens? Have any gens been at 50%? Has a Tinkerer popped? So there's a lot of speculation to go on, but if a gen's popped, that's when you start thinking about the second trap. If you didn't trap the first person, you would definitely trap the second person. Simply put, a second down doesn't always mean a second trap. This is about as interpretive as it can get. If you want to use them more for the mid-game, fair enough. This is all dependent on how quickly you're downing people, how quickly the gens are going. If you've downed the second person quite quickly, you might want to wait and just rely on your Pop Goes the Weasel or your barbecue to find someone else, assuming whatever perks you're running. Another thing you want to be thinking about is whether or not it's your obsession. The reason why the obsession could be so important is if you're running Save the Best for Last. Now, I know that not everyone runs Save the Best for Last, I do recommend it, but if you don't, this video is going to be segmented, so do skip to the next section because we're going to go into detail on Save the Best for Last here. So, the reason why you would want to trap the obsession, even if it's your second down, is because you want them out of your way. Not only do you want them out of your way, you want them busy, and potentially you want them injured. If they're out of your way, you've got a much easier chance of getting stacks on other people, obviously, because you're not chasing the obsession. Keeping them busy is a good way to do this with the trap, of course. Now, if they have a trap on, whether it's active or not could have a bigger impact on the third point, which was keeping them injured. If it's active, they may not heal and they'll just be running around doing boxes. So if you accidentally run into them, it's very easy to quickly ambush them, get them downed, get them hooked again. But that way, all of those 3 points go towards keeping your stacks high. If you're running Save the Best for Last, even if you don't think you need to put the trap on, if you've got the obsession downed and you've got 4 stacks already, trapping them, letting them go off and do their own thing, it's a great way to capitalize on maximizing your Save the Best for Last value without even thinking about it, because the obsession will be doing their boxes. Even if it's just 1 box, you can now get into another chase. You might even get into a second chase because these obsession will be healing themselves. After that, you'll be fluctuating between maybe 6 to 8 stacks, depending on if you've had a chase or 2, and how quickly you can dispatch the obsession next time you find them. But with this in mind, if I down the obsession second, I'm almost always going to put a trap on them, because I want to maximize the amount of Save the Best for Last stacks I have. Having 6 to 8 stacks going into the mid game is just an incredible advantage to have. It shortens chases, it will allow you to quickly hit different people if they're all grouped up. Those 5, 6, 7 stacks are a great exchange to make for 1 bear trap. Even if you feel like it might be a bit too early, that's definitely what I would encourage people to do. Of course, if you're using Save the Best for Last. Around the 3rd or 4th trap, leading into the mid-game, definitely deep in the mid-game I would say, is where the idea of a guide gets a little bit messy. Everything's subjective, of course, that's because every game's going to differ. Luckily, I'd say the first 2 traps are definitely the most important, and the most important part about them is just getting them on quickly. So there's not too much to focus on with that in regards to your interpretation, it's just about how quickly you can down someone. The 3rd, 4th, and potentially 5th trap are very situational. I can't just guess all the different avenues of the way the mid-game is going to go. We can't account for a key, we can't account for toolboxes, we can't account for a survivor friends, people comming, people leaving someone to die to get the gens done. So instead of basing the next sections of the videos on the amount of traps you may have left, let's talk about some situations you may find yourself in as you enter the mid-game, or even further on. This is one example, an analogy of how you could use the traps to extend your mid-game. Let's say, at this point, your first trap is long gone. You've placed your second trap, maybe the obsession has it, it's probably activated and it's turned into a 1 versus 3. Even if it hasn't activated, the person's still very interested in getting it off their head, so you've now only got 3 people doing gens. You get into a chase, and as your chase finishes, 2 gens pop. This would signify that we're well and truly into the mid-game, we're 3 gens down, right? You trap the survivor you've just downed, and you hook them. The 4th survivor, aka the one that had a trap on, just got their trap off, so that we know that they're on a gen. Let's just assume they get on a gen because the 2 people that just popped their gens are coming towards the hook. Yeah, I know, it's a bit of a deep analogy, I don't know why I'm RPing out a DVD game, but let's just go with it. Within 30 seconds of hooking that person, you down someone else because you just ran into them as they finished their gen and came towards the hook. Now you have to ask yourself a question. There's 2 gens left, there's 1 person hooked, and there's 1 person going for the hook. You have 1 person downed in front of you, and the last person doing a gen. This is all based on your game sense and the things that you're picking up as you go through the game. Maybe you have barbecue, maybe you have tinkerer. If this final person, unaccounted for, pops their gen, you've now got 1 gen left, with 1 trap left in your pocket. would it be a waste to quickly put 2 traps on and then a gen pops? In my opinion, absolutely not. Let's say that gen does pop and you've got 1 left, 2 traps on, 2 traps active, and 0 in your pocket. Now you're facing a 1 versus 2 with 1 gen left. That's exactly where you want to be. If you get this close to the end game, and you haven't killed anyone, this would be the exact situation you'd want to be in. From here, whether you've got barbecue or not, you hook the person you just put the trap on. The gen's already popped, so you don't even need barbecue. You know where they are, you can go and have a look over there, you find the scratch marks. So you've made your way to the person that's just popped the gen, you've seen the scratch marks, you're in a chase. 1 person's hooked, 1 person's been unhooked, and now 1 person is going towards the hook. Everyone's accounted for, and 2 people have active traps on the head. This means that only 1 person can be doing gens, and you're basically reaching a point of no return. 2 people need to get their traps off the head because they're already activated. The 1 person that activated them is now being chased, and the last person who was unhooking is going to go find a gen probably. Why are we talking about this situation? Well, it's a prime example of how you can extend the mid-game. Extend it as far as humanly possible with your traps, because taking those traps into the end game can be a really big gamble, and we'll come to that later. We can break down the last 2 minutes of that game, right? Take any section. When you hooked the 3rd trapped person, when you put your 4th trap on, when the person popped the gen. From there, you can insert yourself into that situation. Whatever perks you're running, I'm just running with Barbecue and Tinkerer, I'm just assuming people are running those. It's going to be very, very easy to dismantle this team in whichever direction you want to go. 2 examples. You hook that guy that popped the gen. Now, with Barbecue, for example, even if you don't see the person without a trap on, there's a good, very good chance you see the 2 people with traps on. It's going to take you a while to get there, but you've got an idea of where they are and what rotation they're going in. You can probably figure out what boxes they've checked, you can see who's injured, you can make a target out of either of those 2 people. Or maybe you do see the person on the gen and you can go to them. Do you know why that's perfect? Because the 2 people with traps on their heads are feeling the pressure right now. They don't want to go for the unhook, and you might have even just killed that guy that you hooked. So the idea of extending the mid game or using those 2 traps, they haven't been wasted at all, even if one of them's already been taken off. That guy who took his trap off may have to heal, or maybe they both took them off instantly before you even downed that guy. Of course, this is all a hypothetical, but people ask me, when should you put the traps on? I don't want to regret putting them on, I don't want to put them on too early. The mid-game is prime real estate for getting pressure that survivors cannot come back from. If they're injured, they're busy, they're focused on the boxes, that 1 person without a trap isn't going to be doing gens because they're going to be thinking about healing themselves. They're going to be thinking about where you've just hooked that guy and where you're going next. So instead of me being like, oh, if the day is the 4th of June and the sun has been in the sky for over 6 hours, you should definitely trap the 3rd survivor, or thinking about all the different types of builds you could be using, I just gave you a simple example of how the traps can truly extend the mid-game. Before we move on to talk about the endgame and the impact that the reverse bear traps can have, I'd like to talk about 2 perks that I personally use that can extend the first 2 phases of the trial. Tinkerer and Corrupt Intervention are 2 amazing perks that can truly help to extend and slow down different phases of the game. I don't need to tell you about Corrupt Intervention, it's a very common perk. However, what people seem to look past is that similar to Trapper and Hag, the pig does need time to set up. What do you mean? Pig doesn't need time to set up. She's not a territorial killer, she doesn't have traps, she has built-in slowdown. Hey, shut the hell up, alright? Shut the hell up. Corrupt Intervention, very, very useful for the pig. Do you know why? Because the pig needs to down someone to get that slowdown on. Whether you believe the trap is going to kill someone, or it's going to stay on for 15 seconds, she needs to down someone before she can use that power. Now, whether you have 1,000 hours, or 4,000 hours, or 10 hours on the pig, getting someone down can be all different types of easy or difficult. It depends what map, what survivors, what your luck is, what your ping is, what language you speak, what planet you come from. Of course, the stealth ability and a little bit of ambush can help sometimes, but Corrupt Intervention is an absolute useful tool in making sure that you go into the mid-game as a 3 versus 1. Even if you do a little bit of patrolling while stealthed during Corrupt Intervention, you get a quick hit, you down someone, get the trap on and a gen pops, that's completely fine. Now you've left the early game as a 3 versus 1. You're going into the mid-game in a very good position. We'll ignore the fact that RNG could come and mess everything up, but starting your mid-game with a trapped survivor, which is active, is very, very useful. And Corrupt Intervention just helps supplement that beautifully, especially if you want to lean into crouching more, which I like to do, and I think Corrupt Intervention is a great complement to that. The next perk, which I've already mentioned many times, is Tinkerer. Why do you need to run Tinkerer on Pig? She's got a stealth ability. She can crouch, by the way, and she goes 90% speed. Mate, I already told you, shut the hell up. 90% speed, mate? I tell you what, we don't use Tinkerer for the stealth, we use Tinkerer for the information. The information allows us to do two things. Firstly, we know when the gen is going to pop. If we break that down into 1 going into 1A, dependent on how quickly the gen pops, we know how many people are on said gen. Maybe you make it there, maybe you don't. We all know what Tinkerer does. Moving on from 1A to 2, Tinkerer allows for some seriously important information regarding putting the trap on. So, if you are in the mid-game, no one has a trap on, do you know what? No. Let's say you're in the mid-game and someone does have a trap on, and it's even active. You've got 2 gens left, and you've just downed someone else. As you down them, you're thinking, do I need to put a trap on them? And then Tinkerer pops. You now know, because that gen is so far away that you wouldn't even get to it if Pop Goes the Weasel, even if you quickly hooked them and got on your skateboard and went over there as quickly as possible, the pig is not going to get over there no matter how many kickflips you do. You use that information, you put the trap on, because you know that Tinkerer is going to pop and the trap is going to activate. That's information that even GameSense can't tell you. And sure, maybe GameSense will give you an inkling. I'm a big believer in play the game and fine-tune your understanding. You'll probably figure out what gens are being worked on, where the survivors have spawned. What it cannot do is guarantee to around 20 seconds that a gen is going to pop. Then use that information, boom, you don't even need to think about it. Even I do that. I've got over 1,000 hours on Pig. Literally. Not even including the loading times. Just 1,000 hours on Pig, and even I have found the information that Tinkerer gives to be such a good synergy with when you need to put traps on. Because sometimes I would have just hooked them and then a gen pops and I'm like, oh, now I've got 1 gen to put 2 traps on. I'm not saying you need to run Tinkerer. I'm not saying run Tinkerer to help you hone your reflexes on throwing down reverse bear traps, but it's a good thing to mention, and it's a good thing I've noticed as I switch from barbecue to Tinkerer, as I realise I don't give a goddamn about those blood points or the very difficult to capitalise on information that the aura reading gives you from barbecue. Instead, I'm much more interested in preventing using the information that Tinkerer gives. So I'd much rather work with that, and that's definitely something to think about in regards to timing and context of using the traps. We now move on to discussing the viability of an endgame pig. Let's assume we're not using an endgame build, we're just a regular pig with our usual perks, we've used 3 of our traps, and we're moving closer to the endgame. Now, the pig used to be the absolute queen of the endgame. However, when the endgame collapse was released, there was a huge change made to the pig's reverse bear traps. This meant that if you put them on after the last gen was done, they just wouldn't activate. They would only activate when a generator was finished. In regards to the endgame collapse, this change makes sense. If they activated after the final gen now, you could just open the door, place all your traps on, and wreak havoc. Of course, there's many caveats to that. You might not be able to down anyone, but if you throw Noed, Blood Warden, all these endgame perks in, by the time anyone or everyone got their traps off, the timer would have ticked down and everyone would be dead. So in that regard, it makes a lot of sense why that happened, but it really hurt the pig. And in reality, it just means that there's 20% of the game that there's potential you can't really use your power in, and if you do, it's a big gamble. A gamble for 2 reasons. One of them, you don't really know when the last gen's going to pop. Obviously, if you're running Tinkerer, yep, fair enough, we got Tinkerer again, but you're still guessing when gens are going to pop and when to get your trap on to get the maximum efficiency out of not only the trap, but also the doors opening and the timer ticking down. The gamble of putting the trap on time isn't even the half of what you're dealing with in regards to problems about Pig and the endgame collapse. The first problem is that if a survivor goes into the endgame collapse with an active trap, everyone's just going to leave. Whether it's a survivor friends or not, do you know why they're going to leave? Because if you have an active trap on your head, you can escape via the hatch, right? It's a real cool mechanic. Not only does she get shafted at endgame, there's also the possibility that if you happen to get it on, they can just get the hatch anyway. So that's point 1. Then, as I said, depending on your perks, you're banking on actually getting it on, right? So it activates. That's a huge balancing act already. Now add in the RNG nature of the traps. This is the most important part, because this is the fun part. This is the part that you want to happen. You get a trap on as the last generator pops. You hook them, you go find someone with barbecue, you're in another chase. Boom. You, in the back of your head, you're thinking, oh, someone's got a trap on the head, they can't leave, so I can get this person. This person's dead, I kill them, I use barbecue just as an example. Maybe you go check the boxes, whatever. I'm just using barbecue as an example to go back and find where they are, and then I can get a 2k because they cannot leave. It doesn't matter if someone body blocks for them, doesn't matter if someone heals them, takes a hit, gives them a cheese sandwich and a flashlight. You are guaranteed to get a 2k because you've just killed someone, and then you can go and find them. Oh wait, they got unhooked, they didn't bother healing, they got on a box next to their hook, within 15 seconds they took the trap off, and then they left. What the heck? That's not supposed to happen. Yeah, that's the reality. That's the literal reality of Endgame Collapse Pig. You get the trap on, you do not have time, even if you down someone within 20 seconds, 25 seconds to hook them, 5 seconds to get across the map. That trap will be off. It takes 12 seconds base to get the trap off at a box. They're not going to bother healing, they're going to try and get it off and then get out one of the doors that's 99'd. In most situations, if everything went right for you to get to the end game and have someone trapped, the one thing that you need to go right, which is them having the trap on for as long as possible, it will just go wrong. I understand it's a completely random thing, it's not even experience-based or context-based. It's not something you want to gamble on. I really do not recommend Endgame Pig. Not anymore. I used to. The pig used to be an absolute master of Endgame. But as you can see, it's really not worth it. With all the different things stacked against you, from setting it up to getting it going, you know, you need to get in another chase. On top of that, if you wanna really capitalize, you need to find someone else. God knows how long that chase is going to go on for. And then you need to find your way back to the person with the trap on. So with all that in mind and all the little things we've pointed out for endgame, I would definitely say lean into your mid-game extension or staying in the early game as long as possible. I find that the longer you stay in the early game, the more people are likely to give up. That's definitely a bias thing, that's definitely something that I've noticed, but if you get 2 traps on before a gen pops, you'll definitely see people giving up. So as I've said, try and extend the mid-game, that's what they're good for. They're good at making the game a 1 versus 3 as opposed to keeping someone hostage while you deal with other people. It's never going to work out the way you want it to. I know it's random, but I would say don't rely on that. So we've gone into detail on the different contexts of trap placement, the different phases of the trial, the potential perk synergies, a little bit of game sense, and the amount that you can rely on the RNG. However, there's still 3 more points I'd like to discuss. They're smaller, but there's definitely something to think about here. Firstly is the Last Will. The Last Will add-on allows for the pig to utilise 5 traps instead of 4. It's a great add-on, you'll see plenty of people talking about it, plenty of people using it. It allows you to think about your trap placement much less, so I'd say steer clear of it until you've really got the idea of the pacing down and when you should be using the trap. You've got that extra trap and it allows you to really just throw them on whenever, honestly. In my experience, due to the Last Will curse, as we call it on stream, you need to get these traps out quickly or you finish the game with some still in your inventory. Or you end up getting 2 downs the whole game and you leave the game with 3 traps and a deviv. It is the Last Will curse, but we'll move on from that. Second on our list is if someone dies. If someone dies, it doesn't matter, just go ham because the game's over. Once someone's dead, the game isn't going to come back from it unless there's maybe 1 gen left, of course, then that's kind of a different story, but most of the time, if someone dies, the pig is going to have a very easy time picking the survivors apart, because what her trap does is instead of a 1v4, it's now a 1v3. When someone's dead, it turns into a 1v2. Once you've hooked someone, 1 person has a trap on, 1 person's hooked, the other person has to unhook. No one's on gens. As soon as someone dies, just throw them on as quickly as possible, it does not matter. The final of our 3 points is an interesting side effect of what the pig can do versus DS. There are a few killers that can utilise the nurse effect, as I call it, which means they eat it and 5 seconds later they teleport through a wall, or they throw a hatchet, or they phase, and boom, they've downed the survivor. Obviously, the pig isn't one of the killers that does this, but, as I mentioned, she does have an insurance policy, as we'll call it. If you think someone has DS, but you're at a dead end and you have nowhere else to go, you have no other lead to a survivor and you don't want to slug, you put a trap on, you eat DS, and now at least you didn't end the exchange with nothing. They still have a trap on their head. As you can imagine, this becomes more of a gamble when a survivor's on death hook, so the further you get into the game, the closer to the end, the more you're going to have to figure out who's dead, who could have DS, is it worth it to gamble putting this trap on, and then it turns out they're dead. But it's a nice bargaining chip to have against DS, and as I said, it means that when you do get DS'd, you're not left with nothing. I'm sure I've missed plenty of things here, little bits of information that you pick up on that indicate when you should put a trap on, or perks and synergies that really help with the pig. It was just my way of giving a more long-winded, analytical answer to a question that comes up on the stream constantly. By the way, that's twitch.tv/CMWinter. We're live daily starting at 10 PM UK time, 5 PM Eastern every day, thank you very much. And I'm hoping that this could be the start of a series of videos answering questions that come up on the stream. If you enjoy the idea of these guides, feel free to stick around the channel. I don't know how many new people are coming from it, but as I said, we stream every day. You're welcome to jump in the Discord or continue lurking around the YouTube. I'm absolutely always open to questions or feedback, any discussions that we can get going, anything and everything you may have to ask or answer. Thank you very much for watching this new style of video I've been working on. I appreciate your time and do know that links to the things I mentioned, such as Discord and Twitch, can be found in the description of this video. We are live every day, we stream plenty of pig, we take plenty of requests. So if you're looking for something to watch on the evenings, as I said, 10 PM UK time, 5 PM Eastern time is when we start. Feel free to come along. If you can't make that, highlights go up on this YouTube channel, and you're welcome to jump into the Discord. It's a community server, but you can discuss anything. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you all very much.